Hello, we are in the kitchen again. Sorry, yarn lovers, there's no yarn in this video. I mean, we could stitch in between, but I think I'm going to keep those videos separate. I know some people come to my channel just for yarn and they don't want to see cooking. So don't worry, there's lots of videos on my channel about yarn, but some people want to see the cooking and they don't want to see the yarn. So we're just going to do a cooking video today. Hello, my name's May. I do love yarn and I do love to knit and crochet, and I'm also visually impaired, so I do that by feel. No, I'm not totally blind, but I'm too visually impaired to drive. I live miles from even a bus stop, so having products and goods in the house, all the ingredients when I need to make something, doesn't always happen. It could be months sometimes before I get food from a grocery store. I'm kind of limited to what I can order off of Amazon. So say it's like 9 o'clock at night, right? Kids have had their bath, they've had their teeth brushed, the bag is packed for tomorrow, homework is done, you're tucking them in and they're like, Mommy or Daddy or whoever, I need cookies for tomorrow, right? What you gonna do if you don't got the baking powder? You don't want to measure out all that stuff. Well, today we're gonna play around with the cake mix cookie. So I have a box of just plain old Duncan Hines Devil's Food Cake Mix. And that's it, right out of the box. Now, one thing I do know about cake mix cookies, they bake at 350 degrees. So I'm gonna go ahead and turn my oven on right now for 350 degrees. I've explained to people before, as somebody who's visually impaired, I do have a really old stove for a variety of reasons. It does not have a flat touchscreen. Now, of course, I do have a YouTube short on how to make touchscreens accessible. My microwave, I just put Braille tape on. But say you have been sighted your whole life and now you're starting to go blind from something like age-related macular degeneration or just age in general, right? And you're like, I don't know Braille. That's totally okay. We just drilled holes in the dial of my stove. At the 200 there's a hole, at the 300 there's a hole, at the 400 there's a hole. And that's what I feel. So if you own your stove, that's definitely an option. If you're a renter, well, you might need to check with the landlord, or you might have to have a really good, handy ex-boyfriend. At my last apartment, when I lived downtown, my ex-boyfriend just found some stove knobs that he got off the internet from the same brand that were compatible with my stove. He ordered them right up, drilled the holes in them, and then just put those on the stove while I was living there. And then when I moved out, guess what? We put the new ones back on that came with the apartment. So you can possibly get creative, but you might have to be a little more careful if you're a renter and you're visually impaired and you need to modify appliances. So anyway, we're gonna dump the cake mix package into the bowl. I have, if you're blind or visually impaired, these videos are for anybody. For people who are blind or visually impaired, people who are disabled, people who can't drive, or just anybody who's busy and in a hurry, like I said. And you don't always have the baking soda and the brown sugar in the house to bake cookies. So we're gonna dump our Devil's Food Cake Mix into the big stainless steel bowl. I do try to describe things for other people who are blind or visually impaired. Did you know that there are 16 million legally blind people in the world? Yeah. So I try to be descriptive on my channel. Now, let's say you don't drive and you don't even have eggs in your house, right? Because I often don't have eggs in my house because I don't drive. Well, today we're going to demo a product from the Auguson farm. This is their dried whole egg powder. People want to know, can you bake with it? Well, that's what we're going to do today. This is a prepper product. A lot of preppers keep big cans of this stuff in their homes in case, right? So I will say one warning about this product that I noticed immediately. These cans are packaged for storage and shipment. They are solid metal cans. When you get them, there's a plastic lid, but there's also a solid metal top that you have to have a big, I can't even get my electric can opener to work with it. I have to use a hand crank one, which, you know what, if you're needing prepper products and the power's out for an extended period of time, guess what? You probably should have an old-fashioned hand crank can opener anyways. So when you open this product, the very first thing that I noticed, it does have an odor that I wasn't suspecting. It totally caught me off guard. So if you're super sensitive to smells, beware when you open this product. Now, I've talked about it before. I am using my same old 1 cup glass measure that I just love, but I can't see. I can feel the lines on it, but I can't see the numbers and read them anymore. So even though I need 1/3 cup of warm water, it's hard for me to tell when I've reached that amount because I can't see the numbers and the letters and all the stuff on the cup. So what I'm going to do instead is use a 1/3 cup plastic measure, and I'm going to just scoop out my egg powder and put that into my glass measure. Then I'm going to run over to the sink, and you need warm water with these. These mix up for 2 eggs. So for equivalent of 2 eggs, you need 1/3 cup of powder and 1/3 cup of warm water. So that's what I'm going to go get from the sink. Okay, I have my 1/3 cup of warm water. I'm going to go ahead and pour it into that glass measure with my egg powder. I'm going to get rid of that box because we don't need it for this. We're not using the box. I'm going to get a fork and I'm going to go ahead and stir this up. This is the dried Auguson Farms egg powder, and 1/3 of that and 1/3 cup of warm water. And I'm going to stir it up in my little glass measure here. Now, it definitely smells stronger. When you stir this up and get it wet, you smell it. I don't know. I have used this egg product in baking. You can't smell it once it's baked. I've used it in cooking things like salmon patties. I can't smell it then anymore. However, I've never just cooked it as like fried eggs, which they say you can do. I've never done that. I just don't know that anything would mask the smell. So I can't lie, it probably doesn't look appetizing. This could possibly be a better to be blind moment, right? The fact, I'll let you see it, that's what it's gonna look like. That probably doesn't look real appealing from the sighted perspective. I don't know, it feels very, very thick. It feels goopy. I'm guessing it doesn't look pretty. So, could be a better to be blind moment. I'm just saying, I might have a benefit here. So, we're gonna go ahead and scrape that into the bowl with the cake mix. If you've never made cake mix cookies before, they're simple. You don't have to mess around with measuring your sugar, your baking soda, your brown sugar, all that. You need a cake mix. You need 2 eggs. And if you don't have 2 eggs, we're going to look at how they turn out and how they compare when you use these egg substitutes. Dehydrated, shelf-stable eggs, dried. Now, most people say you use a 1/2 cup of oil. I can't find my cooking oil, so guess what? We're just gonna use the olive oil today. I've made these before, and honestly, what I can say is that I think a 1/2 cup of oil is just a little bit too much oil, in my opinion. So I'm gonna go with I put my finger over the top of the cup, right? Because that way I can feel where my level's at. When you're visually impaired and you're trying to deal with liquids, you can just stick a finger right on the edge there, so you know when you're at the top. So I'm gonna go ahead and pour this, but I got my finger down in the cup a little ways because I don't want quite a half a cup because I just feel like that's a little bit too much for these cookies. So I'm gonna go with a scant half a cup. Let's see. I'm feeling that right now. I might go just a touch more. Okay. But you can try them with a half a cup. To me, it felt like that was just a little much. So now, according to most, I gotta wash my hands a minute. According to most people, that is just fine, a half a cup. And this is all that you need, the cake mix, the oil, the eggs. However, if you have stuff in your house to dress them up, you could do nuts, you could do coconut. Today, guess what we're gonna play with? We got some Andy's Peppermint Crunch Baking Chips. Yeah, we do. So we are going to treat ourselves to that. I'm gonna use some scissors on that because I'm afraid if I just pull it open, we could have a mishap. We could have baking chips everywhere. I don't need to do that on YouTube. So, now I don't use the whole package for cake mix. I have out here a 3/4 cup measure. I think that's gonna be enough. I'd say about half the bag, roughly, is what I would tell you for one thing of cake mix. Okay, about like that, maybe about a half a cup. These do smell good. They smell very minty. If you like the smell of mint, you'll enjoy just the smell of those. They smell delicious. So I'm just gonna take my fork from where I mixed the egg product. This is what we have in the bowl. If you want to see what she got in the bowl, right? I just have my phone on a tripod. This is a one-woman show. Sorry, I do not have the tech for an overhead camera like a lot of the fancy cooking shows. Sorry about that. I just don't. Now with these, the way that I'm doing them, you really want to mix and mix and mix and stir and stir and stir. But it will be enough eventually. Of course, you probably could use a mixer. I don't know. I've never used a mixer.
Stop recording button. Double tap to activate.
Okay. Well, I apologize for that. My phone just became demon possessed and shut itself off. Bizarre. I was stirring and stirring and stirring, and I really wanted you to be able to see what was in the bowl. So this is already did get one pan done and in the oven before I realized that the phone camera has shut off. Bizarre. So I'm going to try to splice these together in my app. But essentially, because I don't use the full half a cup of oil, I don't have to chill my dough. A lot of people make these and the dough is really sticky. If you use the full half cup of oil, your dough's going to be sticky. And you will need to chill it in the fridge, okay? So, because I don't do that, I don't need to chill mine. Now, as I've talked about before, when you're visually impaired, as long as your hands are clean, you have good hygiene, it's okay to use your hands. I know some people like to use an ice cream scoop when they do their cookies. And if you can see, that's totally fine. But I'm visually impaired, and it takes some eye-hand coordination. I gotta get it on the scoop, then I gotta get the right size, then I gotta make sure they're on the pan, and that takes some sight, and I end up having to feel what I'm doing anyway. So for me, hands are clean. I haven't been petting any cats or any animals, so I just use my hands, right? Just get into the bowl with the dough, and use my hands and roll it into some nice dough balls. I already did have a pan of 12 in before I realized that my camera, somebody took control over it or something, and it stopped working. So bizarre. And I just even deleted a bunch of stuff on my phone today. I don't know what's going on with it. But it makes me a little bit paranoid, for sure. I'll be checking on the camera more often when we're recording. But essentially, what we want to do here is just make little dough balls and spread them And if you can't see, use your hands for sure, shape them, and that way you know that your cookies are all roughly the same size, right? If you use your hands, then you know you got little dough balls about the same size, and you can get them evenly spaced on your baking sheet. So there's not, as I've said in other videos, I cook as somebody who's visually impaired. I cook. I just use all my other senses. Somebody would probably use their eyes to know the size of their cookies, how evenly spaced out they are. Well, I just use my hands. So if you have deteriorating eyesight or a diagnosis that can involve visual impairment and vision changes, never fear, okay? This recipe is so simple. It is so simple. It's the simplest cookie recipe I have ever made. And they're good. They actually taste good, right? Sometimes you see these simplified, quick recipes and you're like, but are they as good as homemade cookies? Well, guess what? These are. Now my first pan, I got 12 because I made them a little bit big, a little too big. I like my cookies a little bit big. I'm only gonna get 22 out of this recipe. So do keep that in mind. If you're making cookies for a class or a group, you'll probably get 22 to 24. Here's what they look like, 22 to 24 cookies. And the mint definitely helps with the odor of the egg product. By the time it's mixed up and you add the mint chips, I don't smell the egg product anymore at all. So I'm gonna go ahead and put these in the oven for, I'm gonna give them 9 minutes. Again, often it takes 10, 11 minutes even sometimes. Alexa, set a timer for 9 minutes.
9 minutes, starting now.
And guess what? Because I already got a pan in the oven, and before I realized my phone became possessed, got a life of its own, I have the first pan out. So I'll let you see it, so you can see what cake mix cookies look like. So this is what cake mix cookies look like out of the oven. These ended up getting 10 minutes. I gave them 9. I checked them with my finger. You can touch them. If they're springy, right? If they're springy, then they're done. If you touch them with your finger and they don't spring back, they kind of spongy, your cookie sinks in, they're not done yet. You just want to touch them lightly. You don't want to, like, if you drill your finger into them, you're going to smash your cookies, okay? So I just say touch them lightly and they should spring back. And if they don't, give them another minute. And since I already had these out of the oven before my camera got taken over, this pan has even cooled. So this is what they look like on the inside. This is what they looked up, baked up. These are done at 10 minutes. And they're very, very good. Okay. Whew. So I hope that this helps you. If you're a busy parent, you don't have time to make traditional cookies, your kid tells you the night before or the morning of, or you don't have baking powder in the house, or you're just wondering, you're a non-driver like myself, you don't drive, and you don't have somebody take you to the store every week to get eggs. It might be 2 months before I get that in the house. Guess what? This is the Auguson Farm dried egg powder. Cookies are fluffy. Cookies are fluffy, they're done, they're moist. You can definitely bake cake mix cookies with Auguson Farm egg products. So there we go. My cooking friends, my prepping friends, whatever reason why you might want to try this, you gotta test. You can get fluffy, moist cookies. Okay, everyone. Well, as soon as my second batch is out of the oven, you know, I'll be back to stitching, crocheting. That's right, until next time. Bye-bye for now.